can see that Massachusetts is spending 3 times as much on indigent defense and twice as much as Connecticut. That cannot be justified.
The simple math doesn't include the budget from the police department that you guys have access to, the budget from the state police crime lab that you have access to. What if you add those in? What if you add in the $1.4 billion? Let me finish now. I gave you a chance. Let me finish now, okay? What if you added in that budget? What if you added in the budget of the police department? Even 30% of the budget of the police department. You have an extra $438 million than we have to defend these cases. So your numbers are disingenuous to what's actually happening out there. You have the entire police force at your disposal. You have the entire crime lab at your disposal. We have to hire independent experts. And you have no distinguishment between the work we do and the money we fund through these experts. You have that, and you don't include that in your budget at all.
So I asked you a question and you refused to answer it. Explain to me why we're spending 3 times as much as Rhode Island and twice as much as Connecticut, how that can be justified to the Massachusetts taxpayer when their brethren in Connecticut and Rhode Island are spending much less, and explain to me...
Because your numbers are different. Your numbers are skewed. When you don't put everything in the pot, then how are you going to do it?
Explain to me why 90% of the cases have to be done by private attorneys. Dan?
I have an explanation.
Speak about disingenuous.
I have an explanation, sir.
I'll speak.
Go ahead.
Speaking about disingenuous, to suggest that for example, the budget of the Boston Police Department is attributable to my office is clever, but absurd and disingenuous. Take for instance, last year, more than 600,000 people called 9/11, asking the police to respond to a situation in Boston. A tiny fraction of those people, those calls for service resulted in any kind of prosecution of criminal cases. So right off the bat, the suggestion that any amount of money that's attributable to me is ridiculous. They don't share 1 nickel with me.
They don't. They support you.
They support
you.
In
You
the
take 30% of their budget. 30% of $1.4 billion is $466 million that you get to prosecute cases that we don't get. Is paid for by the taxpayers. Just like the work of the detectives are paid for by the taxpayers.
Exonerates the innocent far more frequently than it implicates the guilty. Okay, just because the
based on what?
just because the word in some case may point to your client, it is also equally as exonerated probably dozens of other suspects. Listen, this is meant to be a press conference. There's credentialed members of the media who would like to ask us some questions, we'd like to answer them.
But you don't want to
For
hear
our friends
us.
in the bar, I know that Anthony has agreed to meet, there's a symposium being conducted by Suffolk Law School's Rappaport Institute for Public Policy. We're going to have a couple of prosecutors on the panel. I suggest you have a couple of bar advocates on the panel. Let's have a civil debate, Rosemary, instead of a shouting match here in these shallow halls, okay?
The fact that you're doing
Institute in November, and we welcome a civil and a constructive debate on this issue. We can do this better.
Why can't we